No. He. I'll just hit this up. And I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat. They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, and everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down.
There is nothing calm when we start the Stanley Cup playoffs this weekend. That's one end of the conversation here as the playoffs have begun, and the Flames have wrapped up their season. We're here to discuss all of that. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks, as well as on Twitch.com Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio. Although I need to kind of clarify that, Matt DeBorg. Welcome, by the way.
Yes.
How are you?
Good.
So we are on Apple right now, but we're having trouble getting onto Spotify, and I've noticed that with our baseball podcast I started as well, which we titled Out of Left Field. That's not on Spotify either. But you can find us on Apple. You can find us on YouTube. Unfortunately, just due to some technical issues, we're not part of the Hockey Podcast Network anymore. If you missed that, we kind of went through that when we talked about the Canucks podcast a couple of weeks ago. So that's neither here nor there. Matt, how are you doing?
Oh, good. Looking forward to some playoff hockey, and then even further ahead to the draft for the Flames. Be fun having 8 picks in the top 68.
Yes. I want to start at the playoff part here, and I want to talk about what happened in Buffalo on Sunday night, because I'm going to relate this to the Flames. And I'm just going to tell kind of for the Flames podcast, one of the things that I want to do is kind of reflect on one saddle. We are in the final year of the Saddle Dome. So there's going to be a ton of memories and reflection as we head into the new Scotia place. So we're now down to
44
games, 44 regular season games. Again, don't forget
42 in the regular season and 2 preseason.
Right. Okay. So 44, you're right. You're the math. Yeah.
Yeah.
But tonight in Buffalo, Sunday night in Buffalo, was an unbelievable atmosphere. First playoff game in 15 years, down 2-0 early in the third period. Tage Thompson scores twice, Matthias Samuelsson once, Alistair scores in the empty net. The Boston Bruins kind of make the Buffalo nervous, scoring a late goal. They win their first game in playoff game in 15 seasons, 4-3 over the Bruins. First of all, that was just an unbelievable atmosphere.
Oh yes, it was so nice to see. Like,
yeah.
As much as like Buffalo's kind of thought of as an irrelevant team over the last 15 years, like their fans are beyond long suffering, and like, to be able to see a guy like Alex Tuck, who was at one of the last playoff games for Buffalo as a fan when he was a kid, to be playing on the team and scoring the game-winning goal for them. Like, that to me is awesome, and like seeing just how pumped up all the fans were to actually be seeing playoff hockey for the first time since like in that last game, Sergei Bobrovsky was a member of the Philadelphia Flyers. So
Holy smokes! Yes,
you
that's
know,
right.
just to give a little indication of just how long ago that was.
Yeah. That was also the last time of course, the Canucks were in the Stanley Cup final that year as well. So it's kind of interesting, the whole interconnectivity of
Mhm.
everything. But and then I just wanted to also touch on the Montreal Tampa game, and I'm going to make I'll make two connections here because Juraj Slafkovsky had the hat trick. The Canadians beat Tampa in overtime 4-3. Pardon me. I want to say 3-2. It was 4-3. And that is such an interesting and fascinating draft when you look back on it, because everybody thought that Shane Wright was going to go number 1 in Montreal. Montreal ended up going with Slafkovsky. Shane Wright drops to number 4. And interestingly enough, Logan Cooley tonight for the Utah Mammoth scores their first ever playoff goal, and he's picked 3rd. It just goes to show you how the draft kind of works, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's just an absolutely fascinating process as we get into this draft lottery moment.
Well, and you saw that a little bit this year with Tynan Lawrence. Basically was penciled in to be like one of the top 3 or 4 guys, and like he's slid now down to like 8 to 10 in the rankings, and might be a faller on draft day itself.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. It really is. Just what you do with the draft, and we'll get into that in a moment. But let's kind of just look back. Okay, so I wanted to connect this because the Saddle memory I wanted to remind everybody of happened on April 11th, 2004. April 11th, 2004 was game 3 of the series between the Calgary Flames and the Vancouver Canucks. It was the first time that the Flames were in the playoffs in 7 years.
I was in the building for that one. It was a very fun experience.
Yeah, that was I still don't know if I have heard many more crowds louder than that night.
That was as raucous as I've ever heard. Like the Saddledome, that whole run was absolutely bonkers, but like that night, like the amount and the loudness of like the Go Flames Go chants and the Ginla chants and just everything, and you know, heckling the goaltenders, everything. Like it was just like a 10 out of 10 in terms of, you know, and seeing the game in Buffalo, like that was as close as I've seen another team be able to match what the Flames fans did in 04.
I was at the game they clinched the playoffs, which was against the Phoenix Coyotes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an electric night, and it was like just this release of the Flames fan base, just finally, in a lot of ways. And I bring that up. I think it just connects to where I think, and we'll kind of talk about an article written by somebody I think that missed the boat a little bit. We'll tease that a little bit later, but it's when the Flames get back into the playoffs, and they will get back into the playoffs, this fan base will be ready to cheer. I think most Flame fans understand where the team is right now.
And realistically, the Flames fan base itself is smarter in some aspects, and like understands that like sometimes you just need to be bad, and you know, you don't need to dogpile the team if they're bad. You know, just focus on the good aspects of the team when they're going through like this kind of a situation. And like it sucks to, you know, see veterans like Uyghur, Anderson, and Kadri get moved, but Flames fans realize that guys like Parekh, Gridden, and a whole bunch of the other young guys are the next group of this team. And so, you know, to just be patient and let it grow organically, and like whomever like the Flames pick with their top 6 pick, like that'll be another key piece to the pie, and look forward to whomever that is, and you'll start seeing a whole bunch of that player's jerseys in the crowd, just like we're starting to see tons of Gruden and Parekh. Like towards the end of the season, like both of those guys, their jerseys were actually sold out in the shop entirely. And like it sometimes, like it's tough to go through, but sometimes it's absolutely necessary to just be terrible and not rush to take shortcuts to get back into semi-relevance, which I think a lot of Canadian teams have been guilty of, to kind of appease the fan base. Like, oh, we've been kind of bad for 4 years, we should go sign X players here or trade assets to get just to be a middling team again. And the Flames seem to be just taking things patiently and taking their time with it instead.
Yeah. So just to recap what happened for the final 3 games of the year, which ended with a 4-1 win over Utah on Sunday. That's where it was a back-to-back game. They lost to the Kraken on Saturday, went home, beat the Utah Mammoth. Mackenzie Weegar got a nice ovation for the Mammoth. Then they lost on Tuesday to the Avalanche 3-1. Nazem Kadri did not play in that game, I don't believe.
No. He did come out for like a when the Flames did like a little feature during one of the TV timeouts for him, but yeah, that was about it.
Yeah, fair enough. And then they ended the season with a win 3-1 over the LA Kings, highlighted by, well, the Avs game actually was highlighted by the Dustin Wolf handing the stick off to the kid, whose mom was wearing a Flames hat and an Avalanche jersey. But that was a really just a great moment for and good on Eric Francis, good on the Sportsnet broadcast crew to notice that. And they got a loud cheer in the stands as well. And then they went,
and it's nice to see the Flames and anybody really taking the time to salute young fans of the sport. And like that kid is going to have that stick in his life for the rest of his life. Like that's a core memory for that kid, that
absolutely.
Hey, I got a Dustin Wolf stick. Like that's awesome. And like little things like that, where to Dustin Wolf, oh, it's just a stick, who cares? Like that made such an impact on that kid. And like it just things like that just feel really nice.
And then last year too, after the game and that ended the home season last year, Dustin Wolf went out and shook hands with the fans as well. Was that the game again? Was that St. Louis?
I think so.
Yeah. And like they're out of the playoffs after the first period, and then they still ended up winning the game. And then like you can never name a goalie a captain, but there's no question that Dustin Wolf is a face of this franchise.
I think for sure.
And when we talk about this whole Americans don't want to play in Canada thing, and this was brought up in Vancouver when Jim Rutherford talked about Quinn Hughes, and of course the Flames experienced that as well from Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah,
that's why I don't buy it.
Yeah,
and Gaudreau.
Well, and how would you say the whole COVID situation was the reason why Tkachuk and Gaudreau left? Like, honestly, if it wasn't for that, honestly, I feel that both of those guys would have re-signed. It's just, the whole COVID and not being able to see their families for a year and a bit, like it was just, understandable and ridiculous that they had to go through all of that. Like, it was necessary, but like I can definitely understand the not wanting to go through that again, and the potentiality of that happening again. So and like realistically, like with Quinn Hughes, for example, honestly, like even when he was drafted, he kind of seemed like he didn't really want to be there 100% and was more like just kind of waiting to get traded to New Jersey.
I don't know. I don't
It,
know if I necessarily fully agree with that, and I
it,
think that a
it
lot of
seemed
this
like,
was
yeah,
a
it
lot.
just seemed like there was a little bit off with him in terms of like how players normally bond to their city. It just felt a little off to me. And it was kind of like, well, Vancouver was decent and like getting better, so he stuck through it. And but like once the wheels kind of came off the wagon for the Canucks, like he kind of was like, okay, I want out of here, basically. And
Quinn Hughes is going to end up with a very complicated legacy in Vancouver, and I think that this is one of those situations where it's not Sam Bennett, but I think both parties need to take some ownership of it. I
yeah, I
absolutely think
agree.
that the Canucks not handling a lot of that locker room strife and really letting Quinn Hughes being too young of a captain and not bringing him a lot of support to help with the tension in that locker room that's
No,
on them. That is on the organization for sure.
no, and like, well, frankly, like the Flames themselves had a big rift in the locker room uh towards the end of the whole Gaudreau Kachuk era as
Yep.
well. And like the old guard of like Giordano, etc., and the newer guard with Kachuk, like they just did not get along. And like and I don't feel that the Flames managed that rift either, similarly to Vancouver, very well. And Kachuk goes on to win 2 Stanley Cups alongside Sam Bennett. And like it's very frustrating as a Flames fan to know that like those two guys could have been here. And like the Flames, especially with how awesome the Pacific Division has been over the last 5 years, like if the Flames had actually properly built around the newer group instead of the older group, like those players might have been here, and like Calgary might have actually had some success in the postseason over the last few years. Instead, like the Flames are in tear down rebuild land. And you know frustrating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even like I don't want to revise history or go down a history here, but let's not forget the Dougie Hamilton, Mark Giordano debate
Yeah,
tension too, which was that was part of that as well. So there was a good 6 to 8 years in this organization that this dressing room had a tough time. So
yeah.
for sure, like the Flames did not manage that well.
No,
But
and at least like they have like identified players that like that are now currently like the veteran guys on the team that are hard workers and are teaching the young guys how to work hard. And like we saw that down the stretch, like after the trade deadline, the Flames went 8-1-1 in the Saddle Dome. And like they outworked basically everybody throughout that whole stretch. So you know, it, it's hard to turn that corner. And like you can just plug and play prospects all you want, but you also need to have the culture in the room be right as well. And like you see teams like Buffalo and Detroit, how they've struggled over the last handful of years being able to turn that corner, or like the Columbus Blue Jackets with like Rick Bowness ripping them a new one.
well, yeah, yeah.
And Vancouver, like they haven't sorted out their locker room at all yet, in my opinion. Like
Well,
there's still
according to Rutherford, it's turned a corner,
yeah,
but
but like there you don't see like any of that veteran leadership of like making sure everybody's being accountable and going out all the time to shift in, shift out. Like it still seems like some of the issues are still there where like some of the players aren't caring as much, like Pedersen, for example. And it's hard to, and like the Flames have the same problem with Huberto, so it's not like, I'm casting stones, like we have our own problems too,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's hard to turn that corner if you don't have good people to learn from. And honestly, I'm glad that the Canucks fired their general manager, and hopefully, they can get a coach that works with the youth movement that is coming in necessary for Vancouver to kind of kick them in gear. Like Ryan Huska has done a very good job of setting the tone of, like, we expect you to work hard. We're not as critical if you make mistakes, but like, get going.
We'll get to that in a moment. I do want to
Yes.
just touch on you here, and I want to ask you a question. From the outside looking in, did you happen to see the Jim Rutherford press conference?
No.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is, so Patrick Alvin is out.
Yes.
Rutherford said that the new GM will make the decision on Adam Foote. He also said during that press conference, and one of the quotes that has a lot of people in Vancouver land taken away is he basically said he's not sure how long his time in Vancouver is. So just is curious. I guess one of the things that is a bit confusing right now is, what is the role of this new general manager going to be? Are they answering to Rutherford or taking over for Rutherford? And then the other part of this, whether you think Adam Foote is a good coach or not, or is right for the job, I think that's a fair debate. But this is this is the thing. And this is the same organization that this is the same group or same leadership, same president who has done this as well with Bruce Boudreau, letting him kind of sit there for a month, knowing that you were going to fire him for Rick Tocchet.
Yeah.
Like, you knew that for a month. And now you're saying you're going to let the new general manager make a decision on the coach Adam Foote. Doesn't that put you behind the 8 ball on 2 levels? First of all, for Adam
for sure.
wants another job anywhere.
Yeah.
And number 2, to find the right guy to coach the team.
Yeah. Like, realistically, what Rutherford should have done is just fire them both and let the new GM pick the coaching staff. And because like, even if like they keep on foot, that like, say December, when it rolls around, assuming that the Canucks are in the same general vicinity that they were this year, that Foot's likely going to get fired and a new guy's going to get put in there. And it's like, why are you wasting everybody's time? Like, you should just kind of pull that trigger now, type of thing. And don't mess around, frankly.
Yeah.
And frankly, the Canucks need to get a teaching coach that is good with teaching young players, and not, that's kind of what the Flames did with Huska. Like, he was always a very good developmental coach, even in the WHL with the Wranglers, and in Stockton. And with the Flames entering a rebuild, like, he's kind of tailor-made for this situation because he's just very good at teaching the game of hockey. And like, the Canucks, I feel, need like that kind of guy who can get players to actually develop into quality NHL players. Like, a guy like Braden Coots could be a first-line player potentially. Yes. But if they don't have like the right coaching staff guiding him to go through that process, like, he might top out as a second line guy.
Yeah.
Or a depth player. And, like, the Canucks as a organization don't have a ton of depth currently, because of like previous trades, like the Lindholm trade.
They don't. I'm telling you, Matt. This trade is not even close to criticized enough in Vancouver.
No.
People keep talking about how bad the Bull Horvat trade was. The reason that's a bad trade is they chose the wrong guy. They chose Miller over Horvat. But the fact of the matter is you do not have a trade tree for Elias Lindholm. And when you don't have a trade tree and you gave assets away to a rival to help with your rebuild, that is just a massive goof up. Like, I'm sorry, and I'm a huge of as a Elias Lindholm fan, but you ended up not signing him. You ended up overpaying EP40. You probably could have paid him less if you waited, and you might have been able to keep Lindholm based on the cap. And then if you needed to trade JT Miller at that point in time, you probably could have done it. But like that is, I just this market drives me nuts with how so focused they are on the Horvat trade. That's not the error. The error is the Elias Lindholm trade. Like, I don't explain that.
And you look at like the Flames, the two main pieces that they got out of it were Matt Gridden, and who was the first round draft pick that we got from Vancouver, and Hunter Brustevich, who's basically like the Flames' number 3 to 4 defenseman alongside Ball. And and both of them are looking like, frankly, like Matt Gridden looks like a first line player. Just needs time and experience, and Brustevich could be frankly as good as Rasmus Anderson was. Which was another Vancouver trade that was, Berchi for a second round pick. And it's one of those things that like Vancouver, because of like where they're at with the lack of depth in their organization, like they need to be hitting on their prospects that they do draft and like translating those into actual legitimate NHL players. Like otherwise, like it's going to take 5 or 6 years for Vancouver to dig out of the hole that they're in currently. And it's not easy. And that's why like I'm hoping Vancouver gets a very good developmental coach, like Huska has been for the Flames, because like you guys need it.
Well, I before we get into Huska here, I'm gonna start with Huska because you just brought something up here. Of course, we'll get to that in a second here. But the one thing I will say, and you guys talked about this a couple of weeks ago on your podcast, the Vancouver Canucks 2024 draft compared to the Calgary Flames 24 draft is so far looking better. And it's because of Hans. And I'm not saying that Hansik is not going to be an NHL player, but of course those injuries are not helping. And Tom Wielander is a guy that is playing regular games in the National Hockey League. And I believe that he is going to be a top 2 defenseman, top 2, 3 defenseman in the National Hockey League. Norris Trophy, I'm not saying that, but he's going to be a solid defenseman. And you got Kirill Kardashev, who I think is going to play games in the NHL as well. That draft for Vancouver is looking a lot better than the Flames draft of that year, 2024. Now, to be fair to Conroy,
2023.
Or 23, right? Sorry, I get my years mixed up. But to be fair on that when you change general managers, and this will be a challenge for the Canucks, I think, this year, it's tough to draft altogether.
Oh, yeah.
It really is, because your philosophy is all of a sudden changing. And your scouting philosophy is changing, and everything else is kind of changing and I think, I don't know what would have happened if Tree Living was still there, who they would have went with. I'm not saying that Hansik was the wrong pick or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying at this point, but it is, that's the challenge that you're facing at that point.
Yeah, and like Hansik, to me, like if he can actually stay healthy, will probably end up being the like a left wing version of Michael Backlund, a defensively minded guy who can chip in 30 to 40 points and be like a good staple on your third line, which is useful. But if you're like the Flames for like the previous 4 years didn't really have any draft picks themselves.
No.
So like they kind of needed to have a a player that could actually play. And like realistically, Honzik is still on the fence whether he can actually contribute just due to the injury history that he has.
Fair, yeah. Speaking of injury history, this brings us to Connor Zary. As we go to Locker Cleanout Media Day, we'll get to the draft lottery here in a bit because I do have some questions about this. But Connor Zary's comments on Ryan Huska were probably the most glaring, I would say, or the most shocking. And I'll just read the quote. And when you have younger guys with talent and skill, you don't want to hold them back. You don't want to put a leash on them, pardon me. Who gives a shit if they make a mistake? It's going to happen. What did you think of the quote?
If I was Craig Conroy, my first job is to find a new home for Connor Zary. Literally looking at like whomever has a similar-ish player on a different team and bye-bye, get out of our locker room. We don't need that kind of shit. To be blunt. That is horrible attitude. Like, yes, like you want young guys to have some freedom in that, but you also need to have the young players being receptive to criticism and, you know, like when they're doing stuff that's wrong, to actually understand that, oh, well, if I do it this way, then I will be a better player. And especially when you have a good teaching coach like Huska, yeah, like young players are going to make mistakes. Like Zane Perek, like during the first half of the season, was absolutely a gong show at both ends of the ice. But you know, he learned as the season went on, and like, yes, was he still making mistakes and making turnovers? Yes, but they were less. And even when he was making those turnovers, like they were less drastic. And it's not like, oh, here, have a breakaway. You know, it was, okay, now we're going to go fight in the corner for the puck type turnovers. And, you know, you need the younger guys to kind of understand and learn in order for the young player to actually progress to their potential. And like we saw this back with Dion Phaneuf, who thought he knew better than everybody else. And, you know, like, yes, he was good at hitting people and, you know, firing 8 shots at net and hitting the net once. But, you know, he'd usually score on that one.
Michael Stone got a career doing that with the Flames for years.
But you know, he also was a bit of a tire fire defensively, and like when Jim Playfair, who was the coach at the time, tried to instruct him on, you know, like taking those steps to be better defensive defenseman and kind of, you know, walk towards the potential of being like a modern day Chris Pronger at the time, like Phaneuf just felt he knew better and he regressed on the defensive side until he got traded. And then frankly, his play just kept going down after that. And like Connor Zary specifically, his 2 leg injuries that he suffered last year, his foot speed dropped. Like even like analytics show that like his just average foot speed dropped nearly 2 miles per hour. And he was not the fastest player before. Like he was slightly below average, but now he's like Milan Lucic level slow, which, you know, you can have all the skill in the world, but if you're that slow, you're not going to be putting yourself into positions where you can actually utilize your skill. And like Zary, frankly, was terrible this year for the Flames. He honestly, to me, he was the worst player on the team by a fair margin. And he was given plenty of opportunities with better players, and he just did absolutely nothing with it. And, you know, like last year and the year before, like he showed those flashes of skill. Like harkening back to the first game against Vancouver last year where he like broke through and deked out the team and scored. Like that was a really awesome goal, and like he would do that on occasion until he got hurt. But like at this point, like if he's not being receptive on the criticisms and not willing to work on the areas where he's deficient, like his foot speed, and that, like, frankly, the Flames should move on from that player because you just don't need that in the organization.
Do you think Ryan Strome or being around can help him?
Yes. Frankly, like that's why I'm glad that the Flames have guys like Ole Mata and Strome from the various trades in White Cloud, and kept Blake Coleman because like all of those guys can help any of the young players, whether it's even guys like Frost and Farabee, take that next step to be the leaders of this team for the time being, for like next season. And it's also up to the players to be receptive to that tutelage. And like the comments that Zary made, that does not scream I'm receptive to hearing criticism at all, which like nobody's perfect on a team that finishes 29th. Like everybody has areas that they can work on. And to have like the I'm too awesome, so the coaches should stop criticizing me and just let me do what I want is not really a good look, especially when you're the worst player on the team. So
yeah, I know that there's a lot of people that are going to take Connor Zary's side on this. I think that some of their arguments are going to be you never really played them, you moved them up and down the lineup. You had him playing fourth line, you had him play third line, you had him play everywhere.
Yeah.
But ultimately,
to me, honestly, the odds I would give that he's a Flame next year, I'd say it was about 5%. I think that like that, like there are plenty of teams that have guys that are struggling, that they might want to move on from. Perfect like change of scenery thing, like the Josh Norris trade with Buffalo for Cousins.
Yeah,
like that on a lesser extent. I'm sure that like the Flames would be more than happy to find a different partner for that kind of a deal. And I just don't see like that. To me is like a kiss of death of you wanting to stay in this organization, like especially when you have so many other players. And like frankly, like the Flames are very flush with like third, fourth line guys like that. We're actually quite set in that department. So like if you're not separating yourself out, you might as well just go. And like you just don't need that kind of attitude.
Yeah. What do you say to the people that compare this situation to Sam Bennett?
Sam Bennett, he was always a good player that was just underutilized. There's a difference between the two. Like even when Bennett was playing on the Flames' fourth line, like you could see the flashes of skill. It's just that the Flames had a very veteran-laden lineup and nowhere really to put him. That and even when they did, like they never really gave him a runway. And frankly, because of the expansion draft with Vegas, he was far enough down the depth chart that he would have gotten taken by Vegas. So that's why they traded him. Like if the expansion draft didn't happen, like he probably would still be a Flame. But that it was kind of a forced into situation, and something was better than nothing. And it is what it is. Unfortunately, this is a different situation where a player has shown potential, has been given opportunities up and down the lineup. Like he's literally played on all four lines this season to try and find anybody that he'll have chemistry with. And he has just been invisible and frankly terrible the entire time. And Like, it doesn't really matter which line you're putting him with. Like, he might show up once every 10 games to have a okay performance, and otherwise, like, he's one of the worst players on the ice. Him and Pospisil, frankly, were the two worst forwards for the Flames all year. And, like, honestly, when you have call-up guys, like, honestly, Tyson Gross played better, way better than either of them at any point this season. And that's literally a kid coming out of college who doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
I didn't mind Tyson Gross in a fourth line role. I honestly did not mind him. I think he did a lot of those fourth line role things very well. He's, and he was good in the faceoff circle, which has been an issue with the Flames for the last couple of seasons, quite frankly. And I would argue,
honestly, like, you have to pretty much go back to like when Derek Ryan was on the Flames fourth line. To have somebody who's actually good, both at faceoffs and the defensive side of the things.
Yeah. So you look. So I guess this is the other side of this, and this is where I guess you look at Matt Gridden and the development and the growth that he had throughout the year. Yeah, sure. I think there were some mistakes, and I think that they were well aware of that. But he's growing into. He's found his game. You look at Samuel Honzek when he played, he found a role with Backlund and Coleman, and he played really well.
Even Zane Perek, like, he was an absolute tire fire at the start of the year, like up until Christmas. Like, he was awful, and even in the post World Juniors era, he was still not very good, and it wasn't until he was able to earn more ice time as after the trade deadline with Weegar and Anderson both moving on, that you started to see him actually round out his game. And the more that he played well, the more he got played. And he really, in the last 5 games of the season, really was the best player on the ice for the Flames every game. And he
doesn't score that goal that he scored against LA at the beginning of the year.
Oh no! Like, the amount of confidence to pull a Cale Makar move, on a defender, and snipe one like that. Like, like the amount of confidence you need to have. And like, Zary at no point this year showed even anything more than like the October-November version of Zane Perek. And like, it, as much as like, you want the young players to have the room to grow, like, they also need to show that they're actually growing. And we saw that with Gridden, we saw that with Tyson Gross, even Zane Perek, and like a whole bunch of the different call-ups. Like, Idar Suniev came up, and he struggled in the first couple of games, but then after that, like, he was really coming on, and like, his shot was really good in the last 3 or 4 games. And like, he could have easily had 2 or 3 goals in the last handful of games, if not for the goaltenders making some very good saves on him. And like, he will be a dangerous player for this team. And it's like, if you have players that will actually be receptive to learning from the coaching staff and take those next steps, they will. And attitude matters. And like, that's where you see teams like Detroit, Buffalo, and Columbus struggle in the past. And the Detroit and Columbus currently is like, they're not having the personnel that will actually take that next step and accountability for their own game to that next level.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I think that people get missed within the rebuild. Like, if you look at Montreal and Anaheim as examples, and everybody kind of points to them as like the current models that everybody should follow, who scored the first goal for the Canadians in the playoffs tonight or Sunday night, for those that are listening later? Josh Anderson.
Yeah.
Who's going to be a problem for the Oilers for the Ducks? Jacob Trouba, Radko Gudas, Chris Kreider, Michael Granlund, all veterans. Marcus? Is it Marcus?
Yeah, it's
Granlund.
Marcus.
Yeah,
Marcus, not Michael Granlund. That was the one that we Michael Granlund's the good one. Marcus was the guy that we sent to you.
Okay. Yeah, but all of those guys are going to be a problem for when the Ducks play the Oilers. They're going to be challenges. You need those type of veterans to play, and you may have like you can't just be a team 25 and under. Like I know that a lot of people want that, but you can't do it.
No, and like that's why like a lot of people on trade deadline day were very confused. Like, why did the Flames go out and get Strome for a 7th? Like, and I'm like, well, you need somebody that is an actual veteran player for this group. Like, losing Anderson, Weegar, and Kadri is a huge blow to the room. You need to have somebody who actually knows how to play hockey at the NHL level and is able to help the young guys like he just did with Anaheim the last handful of years. And, you need those guys. And it's overlooked, but, it is important. And, to me, like that was actually the Flames' best trade, in my opinion, on trade deadline day, despite the haul. They got him for a 7th.
Yeah, you said that one. Well, I was surprised what they got for Kadri. I mean, the Weegar trade was
to me a home run.
That was a home run for sure. And we'll get to that within the next topic here with those 3 picks that are early second round picks too, which is interesting in and of itself. As far as Huska, I think we both agree Huska should and will be back. But do you see any changes on the assistant coach?
Honestly, I'm a fan of the current group of assistant coaches that they have. I think they're all doing a good job with everything that they're doing. So I have no complaints.
Fair. The power play was 31st. That is something an area that could be improved.
Well, you also look at who the Flames have to shoot on the net, and you're like, 31st is actually not bad.
Yeah.
Frankly.
But it is a 32-team league, Matt.
I know. Well, yeah, like, hey, you're actually better than one team. That's actually not bad.
There we go. Yes.
Yeah. Like when your only good shooter is Matt Coronado, and not really anything else in terms of guys with a heavy shot. Like, yeah, it makes sense that they're 31st. Like, yeah, it's one of those where like it would be different if like we were say like had like the talent of say like Toronto and we're 31st on the power play, where like you actually do have a bunch of guys that can actually shoot the puck. But like Calgary just doesn't have those guys, and that's why the Flames are as bad as they are, because they can't shoot. So,
I'm not suggesting bring back Mark Savard, which didn't work in Toronto either. Yeah,
no,
I'm just wondering. I do wonder though on this topic, Brett Sutter and the Wranglers. Do you see a change there?
Honestly, probably not. As bad as the Wranglers were, and I think like they were like the second or third worst team in the AHL, something like that. Frankly, the Flames stole all of their good players, and had them in our lineup. And like they did send Basha back down to juniors to be with the Ruck Twins. So, yeah, it was a weird transition year where like all the good players graduated, like and like the next crop of guys just aren't ready for the AHL yet, and like you'll see guys that do eventually sign and go down there, and like some of the prospects like Castagna and Weeb, and Tyson Gross possibly be down there next year. So I think that part of it is just personnel and like just not having any talent at all at that level. It's hard to string together wins when you have nothing in the tank, and the Flames saw that at the NHL level, and they're seeing it at the AHL level. And like, did Sutter do a great job? No. Could they possibly bring somebody in? I don't. Honestly, I'd like to see him learn from what he did this past year, identify mistakes that he made, and kind of grow as a coach as well. Because frankly, the whole Sutter clan have been pretty good at coaching at various levels, whether it's Brian, Daryl, Brent, even Dwayne. I think he coached for a bit. So, all of those guys, if you can develop a coach that is, has any sort of pedigree like those guys, like that, it's not a bad thing.
No, for sure. I hear you. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, I don't see any changes on that part. Of course, obviously, we'll talk a bit about Craig. Oh, by the way, we didn't really talk about Abram Weeb. I thought he showed pretty well,
Yeah.
considering he was kind of overwhelmed coming into that game in Seattle. Of course, there was another injury. It was the Kuznetsov injury that kind of forced the hand a little bit there. So, but I thought he got himself a little bit more acclimated.
Yeah, and as the games went on, I felt he settled in. Like, I don't know if he's going to be an NHLer next year, but like I could see him eventually developing into one. Probably just a depth defenseman, like a 5'6" guy, but hey, he's big and he's relatively fast as a defenseman. And he is not afraid of hitting people. That's kind of what you want from a 5'6", 5'7" guy. So, like if he can just learn how to be better defensively, then like the sky's the limit for him to be an NHL player. So,
yeah. Yeah, as far as Craig Conroy, I thought his press conference was very clear, pretty articulate. I think he expressed a lot of frustration. I mean, he expressed his frustration. He doesn't want to not be in the playoffs. I think
well, nobody really does want to, be kicked around by everybody else, but
no,
you also need to draft and develop those guys. Like, they don't just magically fall in your lap.
Yeah, but you can clearly see. I think one of the things that for me, that my two takeaways is just there is a plan.
Oh yeah,
there is, and it's kind of clear that this is what he's kind of wants to do. And he's, I think, excited, of course, obviously with the draft, and like he's easy to talk to. I think a lot of people just enjoy talking to him. I think, and he's given a clear account of what's going on over there. So.
Yeah, and like, frankly, like if you look at like past trades, he's done very well on the buy low and then sell high on other assets. Like he sold Andrew Mangiapane for a second round pick to Washington, and then traded a different second round pick in the same draft to the Philadelphia Flyers to get both Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee, which if you were to trade both of those guys now, you'd get more than a second round in return for each of them.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, and then you look at a deal like Strome where, taking on a contract for a 7th round draft pick, like the Flames next year at the trade deadline could probably get a second and third for Strome as a good defensive center for a playoff team needing some center depth. So, and like the ability to flip assets over, and like even getting White Cloud in the Anderson trade allowed them to trade Uyghur, which I don't think they necessarily had on their playing card for the deadline this year. But with White Cloud coming in and playing as effectively as he did, I feel that they kind of made Uyghur expendable on that front. So that way Parekh could take Uyghur's offensive defenseman spot in return.
Yeah, that's a good point. So let's get into the lottery part. So they finish 29th overall. They got a 9.5% chance of for first overall. Pardon me. They're guaranteed
second.
What's that? First or second?
Yeah, each has a 9.5%.
Okay, thank you. Guaranteed at least a top 6 pick. So okay, let's go through that scenario here. So I think, based on what I am reading, the consensus number 1 is going to be Gavin McKenna. I don't think there's anybody else. I think some people are kind of trying to hot take this a little bit, but it looks like it's Gavin McKenna for most draft boards.
Yeah.
The fascinating thing to me is I'm seeing some interesting things in terms of a lot of people talking about Caleb Mahaltra has moved up. Chase Reed has moved up. Vigo Bork is getting some noise as well, which is causing it. I don't know if he's getting into the top 3, but he's certainly seemingly moving himself a little further up. You talked about Tynan Lawrence and his possibility of him flowing down. It doesn't seem like there's necessarily a consensus number 2. So let me ask you a question. If the Flames pick second, is there a scenario where you, and here's a couple of things that I'm thinking about, because I think you do need to draft best player available, but we do know that there is a positional need at center still in this organization, even though they spent a lot of capital last year drafting Reshny, Stocksilius, and Cullen Potter. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be centers, but they drafted 3 centers. And you got Caleb Mahaltra in this realm.
To me,
do you go back?
Yeah.
Do you see a realm where they can go back?
This is going to sound weird, but I don't want the Flames to win the draft lottery this year. I do not want either Stenberg or McKenna. As talented as they are, they're not what the Flames need. Which sounds strange, but like you look at like Chicago, like if they were to get McKenna, say, having him alongside Bedard, like that makes perfect sense. The Flames need centers and defensemen most of all. And like a left winger is a good thing to have, but frankly, like you need to kind of have other parts of your team already in place before getting, finishing parts like, high end wingers. And, frankly, like Calgary doesn't need that, and especially with the amount of depth that we have on the wing anyway, like it's not urgent for that. Frankly, like getting Carroll's as a defenseman, or Reed as a defenseman, or even Smiths as a defenseman, I think would make the most sense for the Calgary Flames. Carroll's would be my first / second choice. I keep alternating between Reed and him. The reason for Carroll specifically is just that he's a left D instead of a right D, where all the other guys are right D. So, and we already have Perek and Brusevich on the right. Not to say that you can't put somebody on the other side and shoehorn them in, but
well, you said the word though. You don't want to shoehorn someone in. You want them to be in their natural position.
Yeah, and realistically, I look at like all the championship teams that have been like sustained for several years, harkening all the way back to when Chicago went on their run, and they had guys like Keith and Seabrook, and you just go through like all the teams, and like they usually have 2 top pairing defensemen on their team. Even further back, like you had Pronger and Niedermeyer on their team. And like while Perek might be a top pairing defenseman in the future, if you got a second one, then like it creates all sorts of different avenues. Like you could, like Perek is never going to be a top tier defensive defenseman. You could kind of shelter him as like the second pairing guy, so he's getting lesser forwards against him, but have him like your premier offensive guy, or throw him out on the top pairing when you need a goal, and allow the other guy to shoulder the load defensively. And I think that the Flames, like because of the fact that they have Wolf and Cooley and net, and like already a good handful of guys on the blue line anyway, like if you were to get another high-end defenseman this year, like basically your blue line is set for the next 10 years, and you don't really need to think about blue liners for a while. And then you can focus heavily on centers and wingers and whatever else you need.
Yeah. Okay. So if the Flames are picking 6th, is there a place for them to move up in the draft?
Oh yeah, I'm sure they could. Honestly, to be honest, I do not think that the difference between Reed, Carroll's, Verhoff, and Smith's is worth trading up for. I feel that like all 4 of those guys are probably going to end up being top pairing defensemen. Yes, 3 of them are right shot guys, with Carroll's being the only lefty, but similarly, like it's fine if they go with any of those 4. As for Caleb Malhotra, to me, like he's good. I'm not, gonna say he's bad, but like frankly, like if the Flames are going to want to build a championship team, Caleb Malhotra cannot be your top player. Like he's a very good center, but like you kind of need another guy ahead of him. It's sort of like when the Flames had Monahan as their first line center, like they were good, but like if they had somebody that was a tier above that, like then they would have been like a cup caliber team. And I view that like Malholtra's upside is more in like the Kadri Monahan range, where high end second line center or low end first line center, not necessarily like that game breaking top tier guy.
But you do have next year's draft as well, and
Yeah.
you're going to
Well,
pick low. You're going to pick high there.
yeah, and like this year's draft also is very D heavy. There's a ton of defensemen this year for some reason. Next year it's almost all centers. So
and then Landon DuPont.
yeah, so like you're basically set. Like if you focus drafting defensemen in the draft, the defense draft heavy draft, and then draft centers in the center heavy draft, I think that's kind of the best way to go about it if you're the Flames.
So, okay, I'm going to just toss this scenario at you because you brought this up, because you're not sold on McKenna. If the Flames picked first, are you open to trading that pick?
Absolutely.
What do you let's go down the fantasy book, and what do you want back?
If I'm say trading from first to third, say Vancouver falls to third, like I'm going to want the equivalent of another first round pick in the future, not like Vancouver's pick, but sort of like the Vegas pick that we have this year, or an equivalent prospect to that, and perhaps like another asset of some sort, like a veteran player of some, it doesn't matter who. Just a couple of things to drop down that far, but because like you are getting McKenna, who like, and that's not to research McKenna. Like I think that he'll probably be an 80 to 90 point player in the NHL. Like he has all of the hallmarks of being a top line forward, all-star caliber guy. Just the Flames need more than like, to me, McKenna is more of like a finishing piece on a rebuild, not a like you're walking into a rebuild. Oh, let's get the flashy scorer that doesn't do the center things that you need or the defense things that you need. Still, like it's just like to me, like he's the perfect player for the Chicago Blackhawks in this draft.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I'm not sure I'm there at trading McKenna. I could see the argument though, because of what I'm seeing with the draft board. I could see trades from 2 to 7 for sure. I would not be surprised if we see that. I'm not being an insider, but it just basically sounds like everybody kind of has a bit of a different opinion after that. It kind of me to trade McKenna though.
Yeah, this year's draft seems a little bit different. Sort of reminds me of like both the Sean Monahan, Nathan McKinnon draft and the Matthew Tkachuk, Austin Matthews draft, where like you go like right through to pick 10 and like you're pretty much good all the way down. And there might be a couple of players that bust along the way, but like most of the guys are like high end players, depending on who you picked. And I don't really view that there's much of a drop off between 2 and 10, even like all the players that are kind of in that range. Like, yes, there is a drop off, but it's not huge.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. I just, like, yeah, I would be nervous about, I'm not saying that, like, I'm not saying don't do it. I mean, if
Yeah.
somebody offers you a hell of a lot, then I think
Oh
you
yeah,
have
you would. Yeah, and that's where I mean, like, yeah, I would definitely be open to it. Is because like if you're, you know, say as Chicago, specifically, because Bedard's cousin is McKenna. Like there is, and positionally, it makes the most sense for them that like you could probably pry off a good prospect or two from the Blackhawks in order to make that pick swap. And like yeah, it's just tough because like frankly like the Flames have more needs than just scoring, which
yeah.
and in order to build a team that actually could win a Stanley Cup, like to me, like defensemen always take a little longer to develop. That's why I'm kind of, especially like with this being the first year that we're officially in the rebuild, that, getting them now, like it's going to take 2 or 3 years for even the best of the players to turn out into like a, high end player in the NHL. Like, it's one of those where, in 2 or 3 years, like if you have guys like, say, the Flames drafted Carroll's, having him, when you get, like next year's first round pick, assuming it's a center in, and like the year after another top end player in, like all of a sudden, like you're now kind of stacked everywhere, and let's have some fun.
Well, you reminded me of something. Of course, that Matthew Tkachuk draft, there was the huge talk about the Oilers, Canucks, and Flames switching positions,
Yeah.
which turned out to be the Oilers took Jesse Puljujarvi, the Canucks took Ole Juolevi, and the Flames ended up taking Matthew Tkachuk. And we know who ended up with the better pick there. But man,
Yeah. Well, and
this,
like, the Oilers were very high on Yule or Puljujarvi, and were wanting to move up to third. But Columbus really wanted Dubois.
yeah, that's
And
right. Columbus was involved in that too.
yeah, and like the Flames were trying to move up to third as well to take Kachuk, and they're like, "Oh, but we really want Dubois, so we're just going to take him." And Edmonton's like, "Oh, well, we wanted Puljujarvi anyway," and Vancouver's like, "Oh, we wanted Juolevi anyway," so everybody wanted to move up, and it's like, "Oh, we got the player we wanted anyway," and it turned out in the Flames' favor, but it could have easily went a different way in terms of development. Well, it happens. Sometimes guys just don't turn out.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it is going to be fascinating. We got the draft lottery on May 5th. We will have a podcast that day. We'll kind of do a reaction show to that. But anything else with the Flames that we didn't touch on that you wanted to talk about?
Not really. The Flames don't really have anybody that's an impending free agent that's really of note, either on the RFA or UFA. Like when Ryan Lomberg's like your biggest name on the UFA chart, like you're basically not really worried about anything.
It doesn't sound like, it sounded like Craig Conroy, just listening to Craig Conroy, it doesn't sound like they're going to be rushing to get Lomberg back. I could see with Lomberg them doing what they did with Dan Vladar. Go see what you get. Come back to us. If we can match it, we'll do it. If not, we wish you all the best.
Yeah, and like the way I look at it is the Flames realistically have about 12 or 13 players that could play on the wing next season.
Yeah.
And you know,
One of
like
them
you only have,
one of them could be Brennan Othman. I think
yeah,
he's in that conversation.
yeah, and you have only 8 spots, you
Yeah.
know, and maybe like 9 or 10 if you decide to have just spares on your lineup. And, you know, like if you're trying to trade a Zari or a Pospisil or, you know, Coleman potentially at the draft, you know, any of those things, like having another guy that's just there in Lomberg also, you know, like other GMs are like, wow, you've got a log jam. You know, here I'll offer a little less for your player.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So I'm kind of figuring that they'll wait until they get that kind of thing sorted out at the draft before re-signing Lomberg. Like if they can move on from a couple of people, um, then I could see them, you know, coming around back to Lomberg. And I do feel that the want for him to be here is mutual.
Yes,
Just
I
with
do
the
too.
leadership things, it's just a numbers game and trying to figure out how to shake all the chips out to make it all work.
Yeah, and I think it's a salary issue though too. You can't overpay him, and like someone on free agency might
Yeah.
pay him a little bit more.
Well,
And
and like he is coming off a 2-year, 2 million per year deal, and
yeah,
like realistically, the Flames are going to have probably the most cap space in the NHL. They even have Huberto's money that they could tuck into LTIR if they needed to, which I think they'll just let it
I
run just so they can
I
have the
think there's
cap
a
hit.
possibility of that happening. Yeah, but I mean, it's good that he's making progress. So that's great to
Yeah,
see, for sure. Hearing
yeah.
that at the press conference. Okay, anything else that you wanted to chat about?
No, just looking forward to the playoffs, see how things go, and yeah, then all the fun with the draft and see what kind of shenanigans Conroy gets up to. And
Yes.
when you have 8 picks, you have a ton of flexibility.
For sure. Yes. And so tell us, what did you guys talk about on Sunday at the Fireside Podcast? I know you recorded this morning, so thank you for coming on tonight too.
Yeah, we just mostly recapped the season and like our thoughts from the beginning of the year. And like frankly, like I closed out the show by saying that, you know, as strange as it sounds, this is the most optimistic I've been about the Flames in a long time, because they
I,
actually did the right thing by tearing it down instead of holding on for dear life. And
you need to talk to Rick Bell.
yeah, and
We're not going to get into that, but yeah,
yeah, well, Rick Bell has odd takes most
yeah,
of the time. And like realistically, like this team for so long has kind of been delusional about where they are in terms of their organization. Thinking like, especially like after last season, like, oh, well, we're a playoff caliber team. We, you know, and it's like, yeah, you talent wise, you guys are like a bottom 5 team that somehow managed to finish tied for 8th. Like, you know,
yeah,
and even if you made the playoffs 5 games maybe, and then you're done, like, wow, that's a lot to look forward to. So, you know, like I'm glad that the Flames struggled early this season, so they got so far behind the 8 ball that they couldn't work their way out of it. Like put it this way, when they started 2-9-1, if they had gone 6-6-1 instead, at the trade
they
deadline,
could be in the playoffs.
they would have only been 2 points out
Yeah,
of a playoff spot then, and like with how the Pacific Division is, they might have won the freaking division.
yeah.
You
They
know,
could
like
be playing Utah tonight.
yeah, exactly. And
Or
so
Sunday, yeah,
you know, the fact that they you know actually did the right thing and tore down, and also set themselves up to kind of have a repeat trade deadline next year, because like you have guys like Strom, Coleman, Mata, Frost that are all, you know, basically at the end of their contracts. So, you know, like you can set yourself up to make another handful of veteran type trades and get even more assets in future years as well. So, like the Flames have set themselves up well to do basically whatever makes sense at the time. And that's a great place to be in when you're entering a rebuild, to actually have flexibility instead of, oh, we just suck.
Yeah, for sure. Well, check out Fireside Podcast. The episode will come out later on this week. We do want to get Dan and Devin's perspective on the Flames, so we'll be doing another podcast with their perspective. Not that Matt's is wrong or anything, but I just love everybody kind of
Oh,
coming.
yeah.
We are going to do a Canucks wrap up on the season, with everybody, and kind of get into that, and then we're going to do playoff recaps weekly. We're kind of do weekly or round by round playoff recaps, trying to figure that out. And then we'll have to do the draft lottery reaction show. Maybe we'll get both from the Flames and Canucks, get everybody together and kind of see where everybody is, because I think this is absolutely fascinating what's happening there. So that will be around May 5th. So find Fireside Chat where all fine podcasts are sold, except that apparently Spotify is having issues right now. I don't know what's going on there.
And in the early part of June, we'll be doing a draft preview show, especially having so many picks in the top 68. I will be previewing basically everything for all positions, so that way can break down what types of players everybody is. Just waiting for like all the draft lists to come up with their final additions, and then we'll compile everything and break it all down. So that'll be in the early part of June.
Yeah, we'll have to collaborate on that as well.
Mhm.
But so check that out. You can follow Sean, though, Beardy Canuck 03, Tyler TNOBLE, Chris Wu is coming back hopefully this week, SCHNEIDZ. Devin, find him on Instagram. Gord's dad. I am KEVOLE on all social media, facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, youtube.com Shifts and Pucks, twitch.com Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio, hopefully soon. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now. And there we are.